with Watershed being in the aquatic space, was it a natural sort of progression or natural, like, did you see that opportunity quite naturally, or was it something that sort of, did it come to you over time to purchase FPC?
Probably a combination of both. I'd spoken a number of times with the previous owner of FPC about succession planning and what he was going to do, and more as a general thing of, business owner to business owner. And I just sort of planted the seed then, maybe 5 or 6 years before it happened. And then he reached a point in his life where he said, I'm keen to sell. He is still keen to talk about it.
Yeah.
So we did. Yeah. So I think it was I could see it fitting if we made it fit, but it also was a slow burn. Yeah.
So 5 years, I guess you probably look back on that 5 years now and think, shit, time flies. But did it seem like a long period of time from planting the seed to actually signing on the dotted line?
No, it didn't. Yeah. I mean, we're busy doing what we do every day, and then the conversation started, and it was 3 months from the first chat till the deal was done. So it happened pretty quickly once it did. I think because there was no, I think typically in acquisition there's a lot of getting to know somebody, or do you trust them, or what's their business about. If you go and look at something fresh, you've got no idea really. But we'd worked with FPC since before Watershed. For 20 years I've been working with FPC, either awarding tenders to them or working alongside them on projects, so we knew a fair bit about them. All we needed was to understand the nuts and bolts and the price.
The price, the key thing, the big number at the end. So I guess just to get a bit of background on FPC, what is it that they actually do, and what does FPC actually stand for?
So FPC doesn't stand for anything anymore. It's FPC. It used
like
to
KFC.
it used to be Filtration Pumping Commercial, and it was set up in the mid '70s by Lewis Cameron, and he designed and manufactured a lot of swimming pool filters and equipment because you couldn't get it here. So smart man designed it, manufactured it, sold it, grew this big business. I mean, our gear is through pools all over New Zealand. Most school pools we go and visit, there's FPC filters and plant in it. So they've done that, and then David Cameron, his son, took over maybe 20 odd years ago, and he's been running it since.
So were they like the big player in the market for pool plant?
For a long time they were the only player.
Oh really?
Yeah, gear had to be imported from America. Later it was China, and there were more players, and in the last 10-15 years there's certainly more competition in the market. But for a long time FPC was it, which was why the gear's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you say the parts were manufactured in New Zealand, or some of the parts still manufactured in New Zealand, or is it all overseas stuff now?
We manufacture a big chunk of what we sell. Probably 30 to 40% would be manufactured by us, so it's fabrication, stainless steel things, or we get someone else to make them to our design still. But the large multinational companies are the main suppliers of most things now, so and again we just import that sort of stuff or buy direct from the supplier.
And so when you actually did the deal, and because I guess there's a lot of due diligence that goes on. I mean, you're not just sort of, there's a process to go through. Did anything about that process sort of surprise you, or sort of did it all go relatively smoothly from a due diligence point of view?
From a DD perspective, it's always hard because you've got to you've got to lift up the rocks to see what's under them, and that requires a few bold conversations no matter what business you buy, and you're only going to be told what you ask the questions to, if that makes sense. So there were no real surprises. It was more around understanding where the value was being driven and were we comfortable with that. And again, I think starting from a good place, my relationship with David helped that, because I didn't need to work out what sort of person he was or how the business actually worked. I already knew all that, so I went in with my eyes more open than perhaps otherwise.
It's cool. And so as far as you purchased the business and you integrated into Watershed, does it still operate sort of as a standalone, or is it completely under the Watershed brand or group?
Yeah, so we had a lot of conversation about that. So you don't buy a business that's been around since 1978 and throw its history in the bin, and that was quite important to us, and I think the Cameron family appreciated that as well. So it's important we kept it. We got rid of the filtration pumping part because no one ever said that. They always just called it FPC. So we're like, well, we'll just call it FPC. And then the other part of the question around under Watershed, we decided to keep it under the Watershed umbrella, but with its own brand identity, and just sort of exaggerate that previous branding and really push it as its own brand. But even in our branding, it says a division of Watershed because there's value in that connection, and we didn't want to not have that as well. Yeah.
And so because it's not based in Auckland?
No,
the FPC?
No, it's based in Palmerston North, where it has been since the 70s. And the head of FPC, coincidentally another David, he's based in Christchurch. So so we cover the country, and the next plan is we've got people in Auckland working for us here under FPC, and we're setting up premises in Christchurch to cover the South Island and give another David, the support of that sort of weight down in Christchurch to do more and better work in the South Island.
Yeah. So like the what do you see are the natural synergies between Watershed and FPC? Like, what were the sort of the key things, when you were planting the seed and going through that whole process? Like, what were the key aspects that you thought these are going to work really well together with what you currently do?
So we've done a lot of aquatics consultancy work over the years, so we know the industry and the gaps and the pressure points and things like that. And the synergies, we had to really ask ourselves through the process whether they were more of a conflict of interest or a real synergy and benefit. And to be honest, they're both. And so what we had to decide early on was we'd declare a conflict of interest where there was one. For example, if we're giving aquatics advice, we can't recommend our gear. We can recommend a number of options and then step out and declare the conflict and then tender for the work separately. And then keep out of reviews. So our clients to date, not one of them, and it's been 2 years, not one of them has pushed back and said don't like that. We've declared it, and we've honoured that sort of separation and stepped out of any tender reviews and things. The other thing is what we found in terms of that strength or weakness was the clients that trust us still trust us. So if we're clear about potential conflict, we're clear about pricing and outcomes, and they're happy with the outcome, then that's great.
I think you guys do that part really well, because the Watershed Group has got so many different divisions, and a lot of them do have like feed off each other, or like the cleaning, for example, the work you do in schools and that. So this is another one that is part of that group. But as long as you're upfront and honest about it, you're showing, look, you're not trying to hide anything away. You're being like, this is us, take it or leave it. Essentially, you're still giving people an option. And that's it. We run it in the same way we run our cleaning. If we're involved with a school client and they want to put their cleaning to tender, we'll declare if we want to tender as well, and we'll step out, and they appreciate that honesty, and we don't, it's very transparent. We step out, we tender, they decide if they're awarding it to us or not, and we carry on either the same or with an additional contract with us. So we run the FPC part with those existing clients in exactly the same way. What do you think, where's the biggest growth market for FPC at the moment, or say in the next 5 years, do you think? Biggest growth? Oh, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity with existing customers. We sort of saw there are areas that we could explore that had been lightly touched by FPC in the past, and particularly we made a commitment early on to invest. So we've doubled the staff already. We've doubled the number of vehicles. We're looking for other premises in Christchurch. We've really made a leap quite quickly. But having, I guess, let's call it the weight of Watershed behind it, allows us to do that a little bit. Certainly not as a loss leader, but as a real growth push. So existing clients is a key one, and new areas where Watershed can actually add value to the FPC proposition. So we've recently won quite a large contract where the value add was Watershed doing some consultancy work at no cost to help support the outcomes that FPC would deliver. And in 2 instances, I'm pretty sure that got FPC's contract over the line. And that works fine. We've already got that resource and that skill. We should use it. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty nice buy one get one free sort of
Yeah.
deal, isn't it? But
Yeah.
you know, if it got the contract over the line,
Yeah.
bloody great.
Yeah.
And that's probably that's another synergy. Like it's another thing that you can promote within that like across those two businesses is like, hey, we've got all this expertise in the background as well.
Yeah.
And why not sort of use that to get things over the line?
Yeah, and it also gives a different perspective on something, not just from we can sell you this. It's more of these are the options. This is what we've seen happen elsewhere. This is what we would have recommended. Here's some other things to think about. And particularly when you're working with expensive assets or near end of life assets where the client, usually a local council, isn't quite sure what to do. Yeah.
So it's been nearly a year now since FPC's come on board? Has it
2.
been 2 years. Holy crap. Okay, 2
Yeah.
years. Shit, man, time flies. Was there any sort of issues during, like, because that was full on pandemic phase, I guess, back then when it was happening?
I drove down there in lockdown and got stopped at Wairuru asking why I was driving, and I said actually I'm allowed to under the MB rules, and the policeman went, okay, see ya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But like a lot of people might think that that's like a crazy time to be buying a business, but you guys made that decision, you did your numbers or whatever, and it worked out well. Did that pandemic sort of play any part in it at all? Any sort of?
Only minor, like that travel or trying to coordinate things and, people getting sick. But generally, no. I mean, we said with all of our business touch points, we're still going to be in business after this, just get through this. And that was, I built a house at the same time. It wasn't a problem for me. Yeah.
Because I mean, now you guys are investing in the business and getting more staff and more vehicles and premises and stuff. How have you found like the staffing market? Like, are there staff readily available for such a specific sort of business, or has it been hard to find staff? Because it's pretty tough finding staff at the moment as it is.
I think there's an advantage to not being in a main centre as our head office, if you like.
Yeah.
So we've managed to employ good people with the right skills, and the trouble in the good and the bad thing is that we can't train somebody everything. We can train them in our way or our QA way, if you like, but they've got to be good people as well. So it's measured and sustainable, and we've sort of had to employ ahead of real need and backed ourselves to fill the gap, because when the right person comes along, you want them.
You take them all. Strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
How have the FPC like customers? Because I'd imagine they've probably got some customers that have been there since day dot as well. Like, how did they react to the news? Were they stoked, or you probably know a lot of them anyway? Yeah,
we had a good handover from David Cameron. He worked with us for a year before his retirement, so it was a good and measured introduction. And our industry national event, Waves, which the Recreation Aotearoa runs every September, we sort of launched there, and FPC's been the main sponsor of that for a long time, and we said we'd continue with that, and we're happy to, and so we use that as a vehicle to launch to our industry, and then it just happened by osmosis over that year, really. So no real pushback, no real problems. It's more, we're changing, we want to improve things. This is who we are. Here's how we work.
Yeah. And as part of that growth strategy, like how do you guys actually figure out who your new customers are? Like, is it just a brainstorming session, or are there some pretty sort of natural like avenues to go down with looking for new customers for FPC?
I think it's a bit of both. There's a bit of brainstorming. There's also a real risk that we take on more than we can handle. So it needs to be measured. We need to be able to deliver it. And the measured part is really our specific targets in areas where we're currently working and we can see an opportunity. Like if we're going to a province and there's 2 or 3 councils there, why aren't we talking to the other 2? Also, tendering through the GETS website, or what tenders might come up, or word of mouth, things like that. So it's really about what are we prepared to pitch for, what can we actually deliver, and what won't we go near is probably just as big a question to have answered.
Yeah, the not going near, that's quite often the key one.
Yeah, I remember years ago we did a mail drop for part of our business, and we hoped that we didn't get a 10% return. We would have been in big trouble. No, please don't reply.
Yeah, I'd like to know where you were dropping those flyers, but we'll leave that for another conversation.
But it was so long ago, it was mail flyers, so there you go.
Yeah. Nice. How did with the Watershed team, were they excited about the acquisition? Because I mean, like it's a pretty big deal bringing another business in or buying another business, and like were the team sort of kept in the loop, or were they excited when it actually happened?
Yeah, so we probably over communicate in our office at times. So a couple of people knew what was going on, but once we did the deal, we involved everybody. So our main office, the other office, the FPC team, we set them all up on Teams or Zoom and had a introduction to everybody. This is what we're doing. This is what it's called. This is what we're going to do with it. Here's where we're going. And I think, speaking for them, I think everyone was pretty excited. And for some people, it's never a touch point, and for others, it's I can use that. And where there are overlaps, it's working well.
I think it adds a bit, like, because you guys would have had your staff dues or whatever in that 2 years, and having people come from other parts of the country to where you guys are based and stuff. Well, that's pretty cool. Like that sort of demonstrates the reach, and they all come up here and they think, it's good to be at the head office and be part of the big mothership up here. Were the people like around the country? You got people in Tauranga and Dunedin and all over the show. Do they get excited about coming up here and being part of the bigger group?
I think so. I mean, we had 2 Christmas functions and a mid-year 15-year celebration last year, a year late, and we brought everybody up for that. And so it's the short answer is yes, and there's quite a palaver involved. It's flights, it's accommodation. It's for those people. If we have our Christmas function on a Thursday, well, for them it's Thursday and a Friday, because they've got to get home as well. So it's a big deal, and we kicked it around, and the cost is far outweighed by the benefit. As you say, everybody getting together, they all know each other. When they pick up the phone and resolve something or have a Teams meeting, they've actually had a beer with them and had a good afternoon and got on, and whatever people do when they go out to parties. And it is good for the wider team to know it's bigger than just their desk or their front door. And I certainly think feedback I've had from the team out of Palmy is that they appreciate being part of something else as well, because they get that help and that input and that support around them as well.
Yeah, it must be energizing for them, because they've been part of that business for however many years, but now they're part of something that's bigger, so that'd be quite exciting, I'd say, for the people down there.
I hope so. And we've sort of worked really hard on keeping the same way of managing people, or our team, or our ethos, or how we like to work the same, in terms of the honesty and the quick decision making and agility to sort something out. And as long as we've got the process in behind it and they can see that, it's been working really well. Our biggest problem has been learning how to run and manage divisions that aren't under that roof. As much as it's a good thing, we assume we're doing it okay because it's working, but we don't yet know if there's a better way.
Yeah, and who do you compare that to? Like, who do you go to and say, is this what's happening right? I think I've probably had the same conversations with you over the years. You sort of don't know if you're doing your business the right way. You always ask someone else for their opinion, and they might have some valuable bit of gold nugget type stuff or whatever, but you never really know, I guess.
Yeah, and it's more particularly, the one big outcome of COVID, of course, is Teams meetings and the ability to have those sessions more regularly and a lot easier. And I think that happens a lot, whether it's WIP meetings, whether it's a health and safety session, whether it's discussing a tender or whatever it might be. That has worked, but you certainly, you can't beat getting on a plane and going to sit with people for a day in order to get what's going on and what's needed and give some advice or support or show your face.
Just be there in person, It's huge.
Yeah, that's the biggest change for me, actually, is how much travel I'm doing.
I was going to ask about, with FPC being a 40-something-year-old business, did you say?
Yeah, mid-70s.
Yeah. That's to be in business for that long that's impressive. Do you think, let's say if it was where do I go with this? Has it been more challenging or easier buying an older existing business than it would buying a newer business? Say if they'd have been around for 5 or 10 years. Do you think there'd be any sort of different risk profile or anything around that?
I think
Bit of a random question.
no, I get the question.
Yeah.
I think you can always say, well, in that time, there's been how many high-flying times of the economy and recessions and slowdowns, and the business has remained. So there's always that to look back at and go, it's okay. What's the worst thing that can happen? You know,
Yeah.
flat lines.
Yeah.
The flip side to that is, I would say only twice I had people say, that's not how we do things around here. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. That's not how you used to do things. And when I'll say they, when those people realise that, okay, we could change and there is no, this is how we do it, the world opened up, and hence I only probably heard it twice. So it's like, actually, this is new and exciting, and the good stuff that we've kept from having a history and all that is great, but we don't need to do everything the way we've always done it.
Yeah, because some part of it is you guys are breathing some fresh life into a business too. Like, it's a long-running, successful business, but some new ideas and some new energy and a bit of funding that can do wonders for even a business that's solid and doing well.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part of it as a person who buys a business.
Yeah.
You know, it's once you get that, you go, right, now I've got to actually make out that my decision is right, whether it's to your wife or your bank. You've got to get it right. Yeah, and that's the fun part. That's what I like. Yeah,
it's like playing Monopoly, but with
real money.
Real money.
Yeah, sadly, real people's lives. But but you know, we're really pleased with the way it's grown, and we've supported the people that came with it, and worked with them, and you know, whether it's their role or their type of role or their responsibility or whatever else they've needed, we've sort of worked with them, and they've embraced it really well.
Cool. I guess the other exciting aspect too is the Merthyr relationship.
Yep.
And I guess, say if FPC hadn't have been part of the conversation, the Merthyr thing might not have been either. Like, so tell us a bit more about Merthyr and how that all came about.
Yeah, so Merthyr Pools is an Italian company that is I've got to get this right. So they're the preeminent supplier of competition swimming pools and leisure pools. So they put pools up for the Olympics and the World Champs, and on cruise ships and in apartments and in schools, and quite a innovative and cutting edge technology. And we had an opportunity to speak to them and then work with them around becoming the New Zealand distributor for those. And the idea there is a good value add and all-encompassing part of what FPC can offer. So the idea there is, in terms of what Watershed does, we can project manage and we can help design. FPC can contribute to design, and then we can supply and install the filtration plant, and we can do the pool. So we've got the complete package to work with other construction companies or clients and say, we can wrap this all up, make it really easy for you, and here's the price, and we'll sort the rest out, rather than, as in most projects, there's a lot of disparate parts. This cleans that up a bit. What's
the actual technology side? Because I know that it's a vinyl membrane over steel or aluminium or something.
Stainless steel walls,
yeah,
and concrete slab, and then so it makes it watertight. It comes in essentially in a kit set in containers. There's a lot of tech in the membrane and the way it all works, the gutter detail, how it links to the concourse, and the technical aspects are what they've done well, and then the right training, and you put it together. I've really simplified it, but that's how it works.
Yeah. And so that technology, how long has that been around for? How long has Merthyr been around
for? I'm going to have to pass on that.
Yeah.
A long time.
A long time. Yeah.
So I was involved in the first Merthyr pool in New Zealand, coincidentally, which was at Sacred Heart College, and I was the manager there, and they were still building it. So, full circle back to working alongside Merthyr 20 something years after having 20, maybe longer.
Yeah. So then who was the agent back then, or did it come out of Australia, that pool?
No, it was with a building company who built the facility itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's cool. And so what's the scope there for new pools, or is it new pools, or is it refurbishments, or is it a mixture of both?
Oh, it's both.
Yeah.
It's sort of refurbishing old pools that may leak and be uneconomic to fix the concrete or plaster, so we can update those. It's new multi-pool facilities, or one-off. So end to end. So you could spend 50 million or 150,000.
And is that do they do a certain size of pool, or can you
Any
do
size,
any size?
any size, any shape.
Yeah. So what would be the smallest pool that they could do?
A little paddling pool
Is that
type
right?
scenario. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you guys would be looking more at the commercial aspect of it, or residential?
Hotels. There's a few residential pools, hotels, schools, small council facilities, all the way up to big facilities, multi-pool. Yeah.
Had you dealt directly with Merthyr prior to this, or did that come about sort of after the FPC?
Yeah, it came about. I mean, David, who's the head of FPC, he's had a relationship with them in the past, as have I through the other pool, and then through David as well. So it sort of was a nice synergy, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, it's good. No, that's cool. So that's exciting, eh? Like, a couple of really big sort of acquisition and partnership type things going on. And so do you think like around the country there's a definite like sort of appetite for new and bigger pools, like in recreation centres and stuff like that, or
at this point in the economy, who would know? There's only ever a couple a year, and they have a long gestation period from someone in the community having an idea and then it working through an LTP or a funding process. But yeah, there's only ever a couple a year. One of the big areas I think is there's this whole range of pools that are all the same age. The Hellison years of the 60s and 70s. They're all now 50, 60 years old and need work. And I'd rather have them worked on than filled in.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because it is a big deal to build an aquatic centre. Like it's not an idea that someone just has and then it's built. Like there's a long planning process, I'd imagine. But then because there's been talk of one out of New Lynn for bloody years, and it's still don't even know if it's going to happen or if it's still in the pipeline. But obviously there's a lot to consider when building a pool. Like, do you guys have to get in with the councils and help them do those sort of feasibility studies and stuff? Yeah,
Watershed's done a bit of that in the past, and it's really around what are the drivers, what's the population, how's it going to be funded, and what's its operational model look like, and that's the stuff that takes the time. If you take that New Lynn pool, for example, there's a lot of Auckland Council pools already. Council's budget is under pressure. What's the pushback going to be if you're a councillor pushing for a pool when you can't get from A to B easily, or we're trying to finish another big project, or there's cyclone damage to clean up? Yeah, exactly. So they're always in that zone. But they've always been that way, and so funding is the biggest thing that people, where the time is typically lost to get a pool over the line.
So with the Merthyr partnership, do you guys have to bring in more staff to do that, or do the staff sort of come on how do you actually employ to do that? Yeah,
there'll be a mixed model of delivery with people here and potentially specialists brought in from Australia or Italy to help install. Yeah. Previously, it should be able to be done here once there's a few done.
Yeah, good.
Just need the right team of people.
Yep. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.